Well, you've often asked about the blacksmith shop, and you've actually seen it a few times, but I don't think you've ever seen it quite in this horrible a condition. Yeah, this rolling abortion is the blacksmith shop after a winter. All I've done is take stuff out here and drop it in. So it's, shall we say, cluttered? That's putting it kindly. Actually, it's a freaking mess. Can hardly walk into the door. So before I can do anything with a wheelbarrow, which you see I've got the startings of over here on the anvil, got out the big peening hammer and I'm getting ready to flatten that plate. Before I do that, I've got to straighten things up a little bit just to get some room in here. Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. I'm out in the blacksmith shop. I'm going to beat on some steel. So put on your hearing protection, make sure you've got all your PPE in place, and let's go at it. Fuel oil tank, the 500-gallon kind anyways, is shaped kind of like a kidney bean on the end. That means every plate that I took out of it is curved, more or less. When I straighten it, it tends to buckle the opposite direction just because of the way it is. Ornament. One of the advantages of making a rustic wheelbarrow is it's rustic. I don't consider this a perfect, absolute straight line on anything. But I do need to have it fairly straight so that I make the corners come together. And since I'm not being that precise, I don't have to get out the CMM, which I don't own. Or levels or straight edges or squares or anything like that. All I got to do is use my Mark 1 eyeball and tap on it till it looks flat. What I'm looking for is convex areas I want to hit and make them either flat or more than likely slightly concave. Now my anvil is not entirely flat, and that's not always bad. We're back to straightening. Camera died on us. Okay, I think we're close enough for what this plate needs to be. Now I have 3 more to do. Perhaps you can hear the rain hitting the roof. It's nice having a shop to work in and not be having to do this outside. As I was saying when the camera died, and I might be repeating myself, but if I am, I'll cut it out. This anvil works fairly good for straightening things. It's not a great anvil. It's a Trenton. Trenton made good anvils. This one has been beat up. Somebody broke off the heart face on the top of it. It's plenty solid. Weighs about 116 pounds. Somebody tried welding it up. I don't know what they use for welding rod, but it is harder than the hubs of Hades. I was able to flatten off a bit of the top, but it wears out a grinding wheel faster than you can put them on. Hard. This part out here, soft, just like the horn. That spot harder than hubs of Hades. And it kind of goes along with the idea of welding one up as being an okay idea because that hadn't cracked. I'm going along one side and straightening out the edge. Then I'll go back in and I'll straighten out the middle, and then I'll go back in and do the other edge. Now these are the sides of the wheelbarrow. Close enough. This part has got a really good curve on it. That's the sides and the back end. Now I got to do the bottom, and the bottom's going to take the most work. I think I'm going to do it a little bit differently. Rather than beating on it, I'm going to use the opportunity, because it's bigger, to just use its own length against it. I'm going to see if I can just bend this down. I was able to do some of it that way, but it's too stiff out here on the ends. I was able to get the middle fairly flat, but the ends, there's not enough leverage on it. So I think I need to come at it from a different way. Clamping down this end, I should be able to take the full length and work against the buckle in the middle. Right idea, not quite enough. Working with your hands tied is not easy either. Better. I think I'm still going to have to hammer it a bit. But it's a lot better than hammering the whole thing. Having a bending brake would be ideal. But if you look around in the shop here, I don't know. Any close approximation even. So wishing for one is pointless effort. Making do with what one has is always successful. You would think with 160 square feet in the building, you would have more room to move around. Little houses are bigger than this. But we're working with the limitations we have set upon ourselves, and we are going to carry on as if we knew what the hell we were doing. Now, you need to mark a line on this thing at 7 inches from the end. For that, you're going to need some tools. Not a bad workbench, considering that it's the base of a commercial washing machine. Dad did some work for a guy who owned a laundromat. And Dad was, well, of course it was my father's. That means everything I learned about picking up junk I got from him. The guy was throwing out a washing machine. So Dad took it and brought it home and put it in the barn, and I don't know what he intended to do with it. But it sat there for a long time, and I asked if I could have some parts off of it, and he said, why, sure. So I took the base and cut away a lot of the cross bracing, because it's got a big old channel iron box that supports the waters. It's got a big old channel iron box that supports the washing machine. And I cut away a lot of the framework, and this bottom plate was about an 1/8 inch thick when it started. It's much thinner in some spots. But it was well secured to the channel iron and had the angle iron framework around it. So I turned it into a welding bench. And then when I started the blacksmith shop, I turned it into a blacksmithing bench. Mounted this 4-inch post vise on it, and it has worked well since I've done that. Now here's where I actually make a press brake. I'm going to modify a piece of 2x4, probably the one that I used to straighten it with. Got to get a couple of big C-clamps so that I can do a better job of gripping it down. And I'm going to get out I'm also going to get the chalk line. I'm going to get the soapstone marker so that I can put some lines on this piece of steel and line it up so that when I make my bends, I make them in the right spot. Then I'm going to put a bend on the end and start clamping this thing up. Probably build a wooden frame to set the pieces of steel on to hold them in line while I tack them. I'll tack them all together and then I'll run welds. Going to take a little while and a bit of doing, but we're going to have a wheelbarrow when we're finished. If you have any suggestions for a new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know, I read them all. It's kind of nice being out here in the blacksmith shop. It's a little cleaner, I got a little more room to walk through, but it's still really packed full of crap. Some of this stuff just needs to make a bonfire, because it's really useless. Thanks for watching.